Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Punch Up Pod with Lila and Pat. Happy Wednesday. I regret to inform you that we are having a little bit of technical issue on Pat's end. Something's going on up in Northern California. Hi, Pat.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, your mouth isn't matched to your words. It's
so
like we're watching like a Hong Kong karate, or some kind of
Oh my god! So my endless computer problems. I moved to the laptop to ditch the desktop because desktop is giving me grief. And last second decided to reboot the laptop because the laptop was slow and it's going through the boot up process still, which takes a long time. So there's a chance that this gets resolved in just a few minutes.
Just as we're ending the show, like right around 6:30, it'll be up and running. How are you?
I knew something was wrong when the countdown that. This is gonna be rough, isn't it?
It's gonna be a rough one. I'm gonna suggest that we just start drinking heavily from the get-go with our green drink that doesn't show up.
Well, that's excellent because I accidentally took a shot off of the wheel, so we might as well just have that shot now.
Wait, you took all the shots or just one wedge? Oh boy, this is
just
really
one. When I was doing the trial for the wheel, I hit remove, so we might as well just drink that shot.
All right, I think that's a smart choice. It's gonna numb the pain a little bit as we're all suffering through the lag time. Cheers to the end of the writer's strike. We'll talk about the nuts and bolts a little later, but cheers to a good show. Here we go. Oh. All right. I'm a little nervous about your response lag time because you are moving really slowly over there, my friend. How was your week? You got anything you want to share? Oh boy.
I like that I'm just looking at a shot of myself frozen doing a shot. That's interesting.
In the wealthiest country in the world.
Can you hear me though? If you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Well, we're the poorest podcasters.
So we are. We don't even have our little super chat.
My week. Let me just tell you about my week, and you don't ask any questions because they'll bowling. I went bowling, believe it or not, and was the one of two people masked, and
I'm surprised there was someone else.
Whether you believe this or not, I did not die. I managed to keep a mask on the entire time and didn't suffocate. But I did get a bowling injury, which is a sign that I'm getting fucking old when bowling caused some issues.
Was it your neck or your back or what?
I mean, some kind of hip thing, which sounds even older.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I've been having that since I was little, so I get it. But there's something about saying it specifically the hip or the knees that really betrays, the age.
Yeah.
Amen. Well, I'm glad you were able to suffer through wearing your mask. I know some people find that way too difficult. My week was good. This was the first day, actually, that I feel like a normal person. It took me a full 3 weeks to feel, I don't know what's coursing through my body from the COVID, but I finally feel normal. We didn't, last week when I was still kind of like not totally here, it was really interesting when I was sick and I couldn't really look at my computer or my phone or read. And I was just watching old sitcoms and like from the late 90s and early 2000s. And it was really striking. It was, don't judge. It was Everybody Loves Raymond, King of Queens, Mike and Molly, and everybody was working class. Nobody had a fancy kitchen that was bigger than most people's houses. They talked about strikes. They talked about working class. They talked about it's really hard to make ends meet. It was really fascinating to see that doesn't exist anymore. I mean, that's not true. Now there are some shows. I mean, certainly The Bear, you know, addresses that, and there are other shows that are working class, Swagger, but it's just different. Sitcoms don't. Sitcoms, everything is like glossy now. I don't know. I just thought it was sort of an interesting shift and unfortunate, honestly.
Yeah, and you know what I've noticed? Sorry, I hope the lag is starting to resolve. But if it isn't, I have a plan once we play our intro to maybe fix it. But anyway, when I watch a lot of these sitcoms, I noticed that the poor people, you know, when they show a typical poor person in their place, it's always twice the size of my little shithole. And it's like, I mean, you know, granted they dirty it up. Sometimes they make it look dirty or something, which is not necessarily in any, there's no correlation there really with poverty. I mean, not anyway, there's some, but I mean, but you know, they can't even portray, they don't portray the real squalor that people live in. It's like, I would love those apartments that some of these poor people have.
Yeah. I mean, that was always the joke about Friends, right? Is how does a waitress afford this gorgeous apartment, and you didn't even know what half the other people's jobs were in New York. But you know, even that was like more normal, lofty kind of thing. Whereas now everybody has one of these glorious, huge homes, and they just don't really talk about money. It's like, you know, it's just completely
right.
It's not taboo. It's just assumed that everybody has tons of money. The other thing is, you know, and I've seen a few people. Yeah.
Oh, I was just saying that they should do a show of Friends, but like take those people in their real jobs and show them living in a windowless like basement in New York. And that would be an interesting little spoof on that thing.
I mean, yeah, it'd be an interesting real show, you know, the struggle that so many people have in every single different industry, you know, teachers who have to have jobs on the weekends and night job, like all of that kind of stuff. Nobody talks about it. I've seen a lot of people sort of in the COVID conscious community talking about how first of all, nobody ever even talks about COVID in any show. Nobody masks. It's just like a blip. Like we're just gonna pretend it never happened. Or that it's not still happening. But like, I mean, the fact that, you know, we still talk about 9/11 22 years later, and okay, I get it, for, you know, 2,800 people, it was horrible, it was a tragedy, disgusting. I mean, we were doing that every week, and I think in September already we've lost a 9/11 from COVID. Nothing. We're not going to talk about it. Anyway, I know we're going to get into it when we get to the wheel, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, there's been a 9/11 for kids, you know, and we don't talk about it.
Nope.
And 70% of infections are spread by kids, but they're all in school, spreading it willy-nilly with no masks. Yikes.
With allergies.
All right, I think we should get to the wheel, which will buy me time to try my little camera thing.
Yeah.
It helps us at all.
All right, that sounds good. Let's do it. Let's get to the wheel.
All right.
Okay. Did I lose Pat? Nope, he's there. Hello. He's gone. I don't know what's happening here. We lost Pat. We lost the wheel.
Wait. Do you hear me?
I hear you. I don't see you, and I don't see our wheel.
It's coming. I'm working on it. If you could tell a story for about 5 minutes.
All right. Well, you know what I think we'll do is we're going to start with the timeline cleanse. How do you like that?
There you go. Let's do that.
They make no rational sense. They have more billionaires are not rational. They make no rational sense. They have more money than they could ever spend in their entire life. And also, now in America, 3 people have more money than the bottom half of Americans. That's 3 people who have more money than 162 million individuals. That seems insane to me. But also, I don't know, maybe capitalism is the best system. I don't know. I'm not a systems guy, you know? But I do know that in this country, we have a show called Hoarders, where if an old lady has like 25,000 magazines, we're like, kick her door down. We're like, you can't have these magazines. She's like, no, let me have the magazines. We're like, no, you can't have these magazines. We're going to burn your house down. Anyway, I'm pitching Hoarders 2, where we just murder billionaires.
Okay, that was Kurt Brownohler. His name didn't show up on there, but I would watch that show.
Yeah. Hey, am I live nowish? Is it?
Yeah, you feel good. What happened? I don't want to jinx it. It's like saying, like, look at us, no traffic. But yeah, everything good?
All right. We'll see. But
oh my God, this is exciting. All right.
We got the wheel back and everything.
Wheel.
I think let's start the show.
I know 20 minutes in. All I noticed though is there's only 3 shots. So weird. No, I'm kidding. Okay. Fascism Watch 2024. Worst of the week. The longest COVID. Make it rain, Ukraine. Still sorry, I need my readers. Strike. Look at that. I should really just wear my readers. And trickle down Bidenomics. We've got a few timeline cleanses. We got a few shots. Please don't erase any more of them from the wheel, for goodness sakes. Let's spin it.
Deal.
Yeah, baby.
There we go. I'm leaving it too.
Okay, shot. I think that's actually a really good plan. And yeah, we need this. We need it. Let's get those juices flowing. I know I said I feel right, but like my voice seems kind of weird. Cheers.
Yeah, did I even ask how you're feeling recovering from COVID? I don't really get into that. But how are you doing?
You might not have heard at the beginning, but I talked about it for about 5 minutes.
I blocked you out.
It's the best way to have a show. Don't listen to me at all, for sure.
Delicious.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Let's do it.
Yeah, baby.
All right. Well, we haven't gotten to Ukraine in a while. Not because there's not a ton happening there, which just gets worse and worse. We were recently reassured that the U.S. will pay salaries to thousands of Ukrainians during the U.S. government shutdown. So when our government workers are struggling and aren't getting paychecks, that money will keep going to Ukraine, which is insane.
This is such a tough sell. I mean, the public is turning big time on this war.
Yeah.
It's happening. And look, we know Trump is not smart. We know he's in it for himself. We know he's a grifter. We know he's he's manipulating people for the worst parts of society. He takes advantage of that. But he can come in and say, I wouldn't have us in this war in Ukraine. And the public has turned on it. They don't support this war. It's 50-50-ish right now. And when people are suffering and they're saying, wait a minute, you're going to shut down our government, but we're going to still keep funding healthcare for Ukrainians
and $700 a family to Maui residents. Somebody just posted something. Elizabeth Warren apparently is going to Ukraine. She hasn't been to the strike line in Michigan. She hasn't been to East Palestine, hasn't been to Maui. I mean, not that but where is the priority? And there was just a special on CBS where they were talking about how actually we're not just funding the military there. We're funding farmers. We're first responders. We are funding their pensions. And, I know there's a lot of bitterness and people sort of there's a segment that's become very F Ukraine and Ukrainians and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I think the thing we all know is that money is going to very few actual Ukrainian, citizens. It's going to our military industrial complex. It's going to all of the different NGOs and charity groups. I mean, you heard the Clinton Global Initiative just decided they're going to try to get a piece of the pie over there in Ukraine. BlackRock, for sure. The fact that Zelensky rang the bell on Wall Street a few months ago. I mean, this is all about just transferring money to all of the worst people in the world.
It really is. And look, let's pretend it's all a good cause, and but what are we pretending that Russia is Nazi Germany and their plan is to conquer the world? I mean,
yes, that is what they're trying to sell us on.
Right. That's clearly false. Now, you can argue he wants to take some of the regions around him, and you'd probably be correct. But at the end of the day, we have people that need to eat here. We have people that are, the homeless problem is off the charts here.
Yep.
And our money, we've created a border, a system of borders. It's us against the other countries, and sure, help them all you can. But the idea that you can fund this war while all these people here are suffering, it's awful politically. It's awful from a moral perspective too.
Yeah.
I mean, food first and then the war, maybe.
But it's never like that. It's such a racket. And, it's so interesting to see people, liberals, excusing Biden's ineffectiveness, what they think is ineffective. I mean, I think most of us believe he's doing exactly what he was put there to do for his donors and Wall Street and all of that. But, they're always blaming, he doesn't have 60 people in the Senate. And, but the truth is, when he wants to bypass something, he's going to go ahead and send depleted uranium. He's going to send ATACMS, long range missiles, with two things that, first of all, depleted uranium is going to cause at least a generation of birth defects, cancer for the people that, we're pretending we care about, right?
Cluster
cancer,
bombs.
birth defects, cluster bombs, that will go on for decades, and it will mostly kill and maim kids who will be running in fields and not know they're there. ATACMS, but when he wants to do something, he goes right around Congress, doesn't matter, and makes his deal. So we know if he wants to take care of a thing, he does it. He knows exactly what to do. Long-range missiles to aid the war with Russia, which we were told wasn't going to happen, because if Ukraine launches missiles into Russia and they're our missiles, we are basically in a war with Russia. And to serve that end, we saw this we've seen it all along, right? The whitewashing of the Nazis in Ukraine, which I know isn't everybody, but they have a serious Nazi problem in Ukraine. And
it was recognized well before this war started. They were known as one of the most corrupt Eastern European countries.
Yes.
Zelensky himself, obviously tied up in the Panama Papers as
taking money from
hiding money overseas.
Oligarchs.
He was his own people thought he was overwhelmingly corrupt. But back to the Nazis, this problem wasn't just some propaganda brought out from
anti-Russia.
Anti-Ukrainian
from Russian disinformation, right?
Yeah.
But what's happening now, and I mean, right at the beginning, a lot of people would say, well, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, which is absurd. There's no way I'm ever a friend of a Nazi. But this, because of the Russiagate hoax or whatever, people have it in their mind that Putin is the next Hitler, and that anybody. But at the same time, they are minimizing Hitler because, as we all just saw, I mean, unbelievable.
Literally standing ovation.
A standing ovation to an SS officer from Ukraine who is in the Waffen SS. What is his name? I can't even see. Yaroslav Hunka. And the spin has already started. Politico, Nazi-linked veteran. No, he was an outright Nazi. He was a Nazi. And they're giving him a standing ovation in the Canadian chambers.
Yeah, it's like this rewriting of history that they want to just gloss over, kind of like he fought the Russians. Well, wait a minute. Why did he fight the Russians? Because the Russians actually defeated the Nazis.
They defeated the Nazis. Yes. And they're changing that history. No.
1 out of 5 Americans might know that.
Yeah. It's an amazing, it is a huge whitewashing of the Holocaust that is happening right now in order to elevate Putin to some despotic, genocidal new Hitler. And he is not that. He's not good, but he's not that.
But let's just say he's that even. I mean, I always worst case scenario this.
Right.
Let's say he's that. We have a million examples of despotic, evil genocides happening all across the world that we don't get involved in.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't.
100%.
This is serving our interests militarily, maybe, but the main interest being served here is the military industrial complex's interest, and possibly what do you call it? Lithium from Ukraine. It could be a big reason for this.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but I'm hearing a lot of there's a new argument being put out there, which is undermining the climate change argument of getting off fossil fuels. You're now starting to hear phrases like energy dependence being important, which means more oil, which means more drilling, which means because Russia, Europe has been dependent on Russian oil. And so now this is justification for the U.S. to drill off seas because we don't want to rely on that Russian oil.
Do you want Putin to win? Do you want to save the world from climate disaster, or do you want Putin to win? I mean, so, you know, whoever, Biden and Ukraine and NATO and the UK destroy the Nord Stream pipeline, and now they are entirely reliant on liquid natural gas from the US. That's a huge boon for the US, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe we should show our good buddy Mick Wallace.
Yeah, you gotta love him.
Here's Mick.
You said that multilateralism and dialogue has been weakened. Goddamn right they have. We've refused to engage in dialogue and diplomacy on Ukraine. I'm not excusing the Russians. Putin's completely wrong to invade the place, but we could have tried to stop it harder. We've actually in April 2022 we stopped peace breaking out. There's too many people, too many elites wanting the war to continue, and you're part of it. Your industry doesn't want the war to stop because you make less money. The Americans and NATO don't want the war to stop. This is a mad show. And there's, as my colleague said, we have a housing crisis in most countries in Europe. People are waiting too long to get a medical appointment. Healthcare is unaffordable for so many people. Social services are getting weaker, and we can't spend enough money on military, and we don't give a damn about the hundreds of thousands dying in Ukraine? How do you sleep at night?
If we point the finger at the defence industry as being an industry of evil, then we weaken this European defence industry, and we need, as we've said, the human resources. Mr. Donjon and Mr. Gala said that we need talented people who are educated, who are measured to work in this specific sector of the defence industry.
I love that that's a that is a necessity that he thinks we need to weigh. Whoa, but what are you going to do about the defense industry if we stop killing Ukrainians as cannon fodder in our proxy war against Russia? Have you considered thinking about the poor little MIC?
This is where we need Kamala to be our next president. Because, you know, she's just in California. Hey, we want to release all the people on marijuana convictions, but
who's going to fight?
What
the
would
fires?
that do to our free labor in the fighting fires?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty astounding to see. And yes, I think Cloudy Skies just said, but what a turn of events. Poland is now seeking extradition of this Nazi who got his standing ovation. or may seek extradition, because he is a war criminal and a mass murderer.
And it's interesting in that picture, he's literally next to like 10 to 15, war generals. Like look at all.
I mean,
3, but
whatever,
10 to 15.
he fought against against Canada.
Right.
He was the enemy.
These are people that are supposed to know your history a little bit. Like, and somebody brought it up on Twitter, a bigger account, a journalist of some sort.
Right.
Basically, like, I find it hard to believe these people didn't know. Like, are we all supposed to believe that they didn't know which side that they were on against Russia?
No, I think, maybe not everybody in that chamber did. Certainly Zelensky and the people who were in charge of bringing him there to get that standing ovation, they absolutely know. I think Canada actually does have quite a big problem with Ukrainian expats. A certain segment, I always have to be careful, but just the way we did with Operation Paperclip, right? Like as we were turning away boatloads of Jews who we knew were going to be sent back to concentration camps to be exterminated, the US was bringing in former Nazi officers, helping to rehabilitate their images, hoping that they would fight against communism in Russia, help build our bombs. That's what the US did. The US has no real problem with Nazis. They really don't.
Look, our government now, all it cares about is making money for people that give them money.
Yeah.
Whether it's, somebody that can get them reelected, or somebody that can get some insider stock tips, or, just who donates to the party. So we keep them happy. So life is easy. I don't have to make as many phone calls to rich people myself, because the party's going to just give me some money as long as I keep okay in oil permits, or, crashing progressives.
Yeah. And so, again, like, I know at the beginning of the war, we did a whole show that was then taken down because it said I did not see that coming, our little play on words there. But there were a lot, anytime you take a picture of a Ukrainian soldier, it seems like there is some tattoo or patch, paraphernalia on the patch. Yeah. That most of them wear proudly. And you can say it's a it's a complicated history. It's not really, it's not complicated. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it's not complicated to me.
And nobody needs to apologize. Like, we don't get into podcasters much, but Emma Vigil, whatever, from TYT formerly, who's now Majority Report, she was saying the worst thing about this is it's going to play right into the hands of the Russian propaganda. Like,
that's the worst part of it.
The worst thing is that it's a truth that's been there the whole time. You don't have to, you can, even if you're still like totally on board with the whole funding of the war, you don't have to lie about this shit. You should shame them, just like the Democrats. You should still, even if you're going to vote Democrat, I'm not, but even if you are, the best thing you can do is criticize them when they're fucked up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And to that end, Trudeau, so I guess the Speaker of the House did resign in Canada, but it's just amazing to me. Yeah. Sorry, it's Russian propaganda and Russian disinformation. But they're just the way, listen, we have a white supremacy problem, well, in this whole country, but certainly in our police force across the whole country. That's not debatable. That's just what exists. So, and again, the people are always like, oh, he's, Zelensky's Jewish. How could there be Nazis? Well, I don't know. Obama is black. Were there still racists when he was president? Like, what are you talking about? He has Joe Biden as his vice president, the Strom Thurmond guy, the mass incarceration guy, crime bill. Like, yeah, it still is there. Very much so. And when you look at their manifestos and their writings and all of the different people who are either running military battalions or who are mayors of different towns or whatever, they are very clear about their hope for a pure white future for Ukraine. And Zelensky even said, if you don't give us money to the US when he was here last week, if you don't give us money, what do you think is going to happen to the Ukrainian diaspora that's all over Europe and in the US when they realize that America isn't supporting the war anymore? What do you think they're going to do? Which is a very not veiled threat that your neo-Nazis who stole the weapons on the black market that we have been funneling over to them will not be afraid to use it on us, just the way they threatened to use it on him. They told him they would hang him from a tree if he negotiated peace with Russia.
Yeah, and that's the problem. That's where our buddy Mick comes in, and he says, you guys are trying to stop peace from breaking out.
Yeah.
And that seems to be our role. We want this war to go on.
Yep. Well, it's very lucrative for all the most important people. All right. What do you think?
I'm way ahead of here. We gotta.
All right. Good.
Let's spin this puppy.
Yeah, baby.
Look at that. Look at that. All right. Here we go. Well, this made me laugh at 3 a.m.
It's not going to end well that much, I know.
Wait for it. It just feels like every time I ever go skiing, just like mass chaos from one person who couldn't handle herself or himself on the skis. All right. It was funnier at 3 a.m. Sorry. I probably shouldn't pull those clips at 3 a.m. It was hilarious.
That's all right.
To me at 3
I
a.m.
enjoyed it. I think we need an audio track. That's what
I know. I thought I had one. I don't have the audio going at 3 a.m.
Yeah,
I think
some Benny Hill music or something.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry about that. I think I'm gonna say that's a glitch from StreamYard. There was audio at 3 a.m.
Yeah, baby.
All right, you want to start it, or do you want me to?
Bidenomics. I mean, obviously, we know, Biden's out here telling everybody things are great. Wait for it. It's good. If you think you're not doing great, you're wrong. And everyone's saying, you're right, Biden, you got to get out there and just tell them they're doing better. That's the message from the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Tell people they're doing better. They're not. I mean, this economy, when the economy is doing better and people are doing worse, it's by design. And you can't sell that to people.
The poverty increased 60% in 1 year. That is horrifying. And this came out from the Fed last week. The share of adults doing at least okay financially fell sharply, was among the lowest observed since 2016. The decline in financial well-being occurred broadly across the population. The majority of the population works and holds no capital, while a small minority holds a large amount of capital and manages it full-time. I mean,
capitalism. We have no capital. Poor people have no capital, which is why when you see the enormous rise in housing costs, that's the only, you have something when you own a house. And when you don't own a house, you kind of have nothing as far as a bargaining chip, nothing to secure your future.
Nothing. Yeah.
And so they're just making it harder and harder to own anything, to buy anything. You're just going to rent and be a worker bee forever.
Well, here's a video with a little music just to make up for the last one.
Hey ladies, drop it down. Just wanna see you touch the ground. Don't be shy, girl, go bonanza. Shake your body like a belly dancer. Hey ladies, drop it down. Just wanna see you touch the ground. Don't be shy, girl, go bonanza. Hey ladies, drop it down. Just wanna see you touch the ground. Don't be shy, girl, go bonanza. Shake your body like a belly dancer. Hey ladies, drop it down. Just wanna see you touch the ground. Don't be shy, girl, go bonanza. Hey ladies, drop it down. Just wanna see you touch the ground. Don't be shy, girl, go bonanza. Shake your body like a belly dancer. Hey ladies, drop it down. Just wanna see you touch the ground. Don't be shy, girl, go bonanza. Hey ladies, drop it down. Just just wanna see you touch the ground. Don't be shy, girl, go bonanza. Shake your body like a belly dancer. Hey ladies, drop it down. Just wanna see you touch the ground. Don't be shy, girl, go bonanza. Hey ladies, drop it down. Just wanna see you touch the ground. Don't be shy, girl, go bonanza.
You know, obviously that's more than a Biden problem, but he is part of the problem. He's been in government for 40 years. It is a bipartisan problem. You don't come in promising a $15 minimum wage, which is already wildly below what it should be at $27 an hour, I think is what it should be if it had increased with inflation and productivity. And then blame the parliamentarian for not forcing that through when you are head of the party and control both chambers.
But here's where, I mean, you can't really look, you can look at the last blip and say that's probably Biden's fault. But
yeah,
Biden, more than probably anyone in office today in any position, had a huge hand in that making that graph go that way. I mean, the crime bill, how many people had their families and families' futures ruined because of the crime
destroyed.
bill.
Yep. Or not being able to discharge student debt in the bankrupt bill, right? Bankruptcy bill.
You know,
but
and he
also
was known as the senator from VBNMW because his whole existence was to prop up the banks, and the banks are a huge part of the problem. The banks now they're out there buying up houses and remodeling themselves and owning them themselves. They have teams that buy houses and real estate. So they're squeezing everyone out of the middle class. You're never even going to make it to the middle class is what they're saying now.
That's right. You will be lucky. It is a dream to own a home instead of just part of the middle class experience that everybody used to feel, or most people used to feel they would be able to get in on. But even, that graphic that Devin says I played before, so sorry. But that's rent. That's not even housing costs. Nobody can even afford houses, but that's just rent. And, they used to say that rent's supposed to be a quarter of your income. And I think now it's over half of most people's income. Yeah, so people are having to work 2-3 jobs just to barely pay their bills. So all you're doing is working to pay bills. There's no vacations or downtime. Most people are working 6-7 days a week.
And then the government acts like, oh, they're scratching their head. Well, we really don't know why you got this homeless problem. Well, it turns out if you look at it, the homelessness directly corresponds with the housing costs in the area relative to the income. So it's a clear correlation with housing and homelessness.
Way too small for me to read, but the median home value in the U.S. just 10 years ago was roughly 161 or 181,000. Yeah, all right, fine. I'm putting on my readers. It's too small of a graphic. 161,000. Today, the median home value is 350,000, up 117%, which is 4.5 times the median income. Meanwhile, the median sales price on a home today is at $416,000, which is 5.5 times the median income. Existing home sales are now at their lowest level since 2010, with 90% of borrowers locked into rates below 5%. Supply is scarce. The other thing I was just reading, in Poland, they are giving tax credits to people who are buying homes for the first time, only if they aren't new homes, which is great. So that it's like an anti-incentive for all these developers to come in and make mansions, right?
Right.
But there are lots of things that our government could do with regulations, with prohibiting BlackRock from buying up single family homes, from prohibiting exactly what you're talking about, Zillow and Movoto and all those places. That was, that thing of like, anytime the service is free, you're the service. So when people are listing their homes on Zillow or looking on Zillow and everybody's doing like comp specs, then BlackRock comes in, sees, oh, this is an area where all the houses are $315,000. We have tons of capital because the government bails us out every time we want, and gives us all of our different incentives to be part of different cities. They can buy things with cash at $315,000, which then automatically makes all the homes go up in value. So then when they buy the next ones, they're now pricing everybody. I mean, that's the whole scam. I mean, they used that data from Zillow in order to infiltrate communities and buy up all the homes, basically.
It's pretty ridiculous. I mean, Sacramento is like, I'll give you an example. My boss, he owns his own electrical business, but he's decided he wants to get into buying and flipping houses, right?
Right.
Good luck with that. But so we've started stopping at houses while I'm out there working to look at them. And we stopped at one that was literally a meth house that part of it blew up from the meth. And there were like 30 people there in the middle of the day on like a Tuesday. Right. Well, yeah, it was literally Tuesday. So there 30 people stopped by because this is a rare house they might be able to get because the market is so tight and they're priced out by all the banks and such that this is one of those deals where they have to demolish the house. So it's going to be a cash only offer. And those places don't want to get into these small deals, but that's how small the market is that these people are, and we're talking $250,000 for a lot in a terrible neighborhood, terrible crime ridden neighborhood.
Yep.
And these people are fighting over it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, what hope do any of us have? Baby boomers are now becoming homeless at a rate not seen since the Great Depression. Herbert Hoover, 2024.
I mean, when your whole society is $400 away from being broke and not able to pay their bills, what do you think happens when, the rent goes up more than the cost of living goes up? I mean, the cost of living and rent go up more than your income goes up.
Yeah.
And this income inequality is contributing to that, obviously. But this is where Biden comes in and they all say the economy is doing great. And if you keep rating the economy based on GDP alone and not how your citizens are living and the quality of life, which should be, that's the metric of a good economy is how much hunger you have, how many homeless people you have.
Right. Lack of desperation. If we had good public schools and housing and food, the big thing that they bragged about with child poverty because of the child tax credit, when they ripped that away, child poverty more than doubled. And people always want to blame it's just the Republicans. But the truth is, Bernie Sanders tried to get that as a standalone bill or attach it to a must-pass reconciliation bill. And he was the only Democrat, not really a Democrat, to fight for that. Biden didn't request funding for child tax credit enhancements in his budget request for 2023. He waited until 2024 after Democrats lost the House. And that's just the whole scam, that is the whole scam. And people will say, well, what could Biden do? He doesn't have it. Fight for it. It was a must-pass bill. The whole point of Biden was he said he could work with Republicans across the aisle. He can't even discipline. I mean, again, it's all an act, I know. But like the same people who were like, we got to have Biden. He's been there. He knows politics. He can work with the other side. And that was his whole pitch. He can't even work with his own side.
Yeah. Well, and I thought it was cute today that he released a video calling out the radical wing of the Republicans holding the party hostage.
Right.
If Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy can't get a hold of those, that group of people there, they're failing at their job. Meanwhile, like two people stopped him from everything. Sinema and Manchin and parliamentarian allegedly could stop him. That's his excuse, but now you got a whole block on the right. And somehow he's supposed to contain, Mitch and McCarthy are supposed to contain him. But then look, at the end of the day, that group is going to get concessions to whatever happens in the budget. They're going to get something out of their evil plot. So why can't the squad, why can't progressives just once in their fucking life leverage their power for something good?
Refuse to vote for something. Yeah. Refuse
one time
to vote.
Just fucking
force
do it
it
once.
Not to pass. Yeah. Never. They're never going to do it. So if you ever peel back anybody's argument, it's very clear whom everybody is fighting for. And it's never us, ever. But they know exactly how to get what they want. That's the thing. Like, I wish there were a way to disabuse liberals of the notion that the most powerful person in the world is only powerful when it's a Republican. It's absurd.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, recently Biden's on the committee forming trip, going around,
Right.
Guns get a committee, climate change gets a committee.
And boy, do they, yeah.
People are not buying it. Now, his little union shtick, a lot of people aren't following it enough. And even progressives some progressives are saying, oh, good job. He's on the line.
Historic. It's the first time a sitting president has ever been on a union or, walked the line with unions. I mean, he was there for 15 minutes. I did see the video where Cornel West called him out on it and said we need more than photo ops, which was great. I mean, Cornel West, like Bernie, has been on hundreds, thousands of picket lines. I think Biden did one in 2019 when he first was announcing. And, again, it was like, he showed up, I'm working Joe, Union Joe, whatever. But it's always just a photo op for him, for sure.
It's a photo op. What's going to come of it? I mean, now all that has to happen. And, we talk about Sean Fain and is his strategy right to do the targeted strikes versus, we won't know the answer to that. Who knows? But this is where you need rank and file people to be involved in the leadership and overseeing some of these strikes, because here he is chumming up with Joe Biden. Joe Biden's there. That's great. So he can rehab Joe Biden's image and Joe Biden
after breaking a rail worker strike. Exactly.
So whatever comes of it, we don't know, because we don't have rank and file people in these negotiations. They didn't vote to agree to the tactics that Sean Fain is taking.
They were completely shocked by that. And what does it do when some people are making $500 a week from the strike fund and other people are making their actual salaries because they're working? When you've painted the boss, and they are, as evil CEOs who are stealing your labor, you vote to strike at 98%, and then most of you are forced back to work while other people are striking. I mean, yeah, listen, I don't think it's a good tactic, even though I know that there are a lot of people on the progressive left who are talking about what a brilliant strategy it is, because everybody wants to, it's such a hard dilemma when you are striking. And it reminds me of every election we ever have, where it's like the evil Republicans. And I do think they're evil. Like, I don't think this is new, as much as everybody wants to say, Biden just this week was like, we need the real Republicans back. No, they're evil. They've always been evil, just like most Democrats. But when you've got the threat of Trump, who is absolutely anti-union, who at least Joe Biden has a few people in the NLRB who are actually taking that job seriously, sort of. It's never the right time to bring up or to criticize, right? So, like, while people are striking, if I say something about the stand-up strikes, I got a lot of pushback. Like, I want to just support the union right now. Well, I am supporting I'm supporting the workers. I might not be supporting the bureaucracy. I'm supporting the workers, but it's not the right time. And frankly, a lot of workers at that point also feel like, listen, there's only really two options right now. I support what my union leader's doing, or I go back to work for this evil person who's made very clear that they don't want us to share in any success. At least, the union leaders are paying lip service to it, right? But like, then there's never time to talk about it, because when, and I know we're going to get to the WGA stuff too, but like, when the strike's over, people are so thrilled. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I totally jumped the gun and got us into strikes.
I'm sorry. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's just it's frustrating, because it feels like there's never a right time to have any of these discussions. And that is the whole strategy of the CEO corporate capital class, right? They keep us desperate. You don't have healthcare. You barely make enough money at the job. So are you really going to speak out now against the few people who are at least nominally trying to fix things?
Well, and that's what we're going to get galore from this photo op.
Yeah.
When we try to argue to our normie friends that Joe isn't really a union guy, they're like, he showed up. Look, I don't know. You could criticize and say he could do better, but he was on the line with them. Like, what does it mean that he was on the line with them? I mean, it doesn't, it's nothing. he could break this strike, and then they're going to say, well, he was on the line. He did all he could. He fought.
Right.
You know.
And meanwhile, and listen, this is sort of gossipy, and who knows, but like apparently the head of Ford is one of his big donors. And that's one of the plants they're not really striking. And they say, oh, well, Ford's actually making some concessions. We're having talks, so it's like, what is happening? You strike, you shut down, you stop making the product that your labor is helping the capital class destroy all of us with, right? Like, so when you don't do that, you're not really striking. And I just wonder, because also they keep highlighting the fact that Sean Fain has not, and UAW is the only big union who has not come out to endorse Biden yet. But what's going to happen, just like with our squad, is when he does, and he will, of course, then people will say, see, he held out. Now he's endorsing him because Biden really earned it. And that's going to be false.
Yeah, it's all a mess. I mean, look, if the strategy of targeted strikes, if it works and makes sense, that's great. But how are we going to know they got the maximum out of it when he chose a path that his own people didn't vote for?
Exactly. Yeah. And it was clear, and we didn't show the video. If you thought that the skiing video was a little difficult to watch because of the lack of audio, the video of Sean Fain announcing the start of the strike and then saying it was going to be stand-up strikes, there was like 30 seconds of him reading comments, trying to find anything positive to say, because everybody in the comment section was furious. What do you mean we're going back to work? We voted to strike. There was a deadline. Contract is over. They didn't come to the table. They didn't meet our demands. So now we strike.
Lila sent me that video, and I was like, what am I watching here? I
was like, it was like a lag time.
Am I even watching it? Because like there's no movement. He's just sitting there looking at a computer.
Like reading. Yeah.
But it was him in a live feed saying, hey, let's look at the comments after he just announced, like you said, that this was their strategy. And there was nothing positive to say. Nobody. So the most you hear from people when they interview these strikers, the workers, the UAW workers, is some people are like, well, let's see what happens. But there's nobody's like, I love this approach. This is great.
Right. Except the pundits and the progressive news media, who really tried to explain why it was such a brilliant strategy. So.
Look, there are arguments for the strategy.
Yeah.
I can understand them. It could end up the greatest move on earth. We shall see. But it surely seems like you're giving all these huge corporations the opportunity to find a way out of it when you're dragging it out and slowly inflicting pain versus a lot of pain. So they have to do something.
Well, and one of it was like, it's at the parts manufacturers, not at the, it's like the easiest thing to shut down that caused the least amount of damage. I mean, I don't know, but I think overall what really has to happen is transparency and democracy amongst the workers so that they are part of that decision. All right, but I know
I derailed us to the strike stuff. We have other strike stuff. So let's get back to the economy. Where were we? Biden
so the child tax credit, which Democrats allowed to be stripped away. So child poverty has increased, doubled, I think.
We've got bankruptcy cases off the charts.
39,000 bankruptcy cases just in August. 18%.
We showed the home prices, but let's look at it again. Just try to buy a home here now. Like our parents and their parents had such an easier path to getting out of poverty or to at least having a solid middle-class life that didn't risk them being on the streets. If they had a medical bill that was too much, they were covered.
That's right. Sorry, I did see that. It's true. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure we get some of the comments. Yeah, that disparity. Okay, this I find so fascinating. So Amtrak's new trains can't hit full speed on the ancient Amtrak tracks. New trains will enter service in 2024, but will be limited to about half the speed that high-speed rail reaches in other countries, because we never invest in our infrastructure, which is why we have all these train derailments, because all of these companies are allowed to do stock buybacks and not.
But don't you realize, and
yeah.
this is where being a progressive is a nightmare, because our centrist normie Dem friends are going to say the infrastructure bill, it's the biggest investment ever made in our country's infrastructure. Yeah, but none of it takes us anywhere close to what needs to be done in this country. It's not even remotely.
Yeah.
The infrastructure bill doesn't even repair half the bridges that are going to fall over, according to scientists.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
scientists
Engineers,
are like, okay,
that's
this bridge, engineers, excuse me.
Yeah.
These engineers are like, okay, this bridge is probably going to collapse in 15 years. And they're
Right.
like, it's one of the good ones. We'll leave it up for a while. It's not even repairing some of these.
It's not, and it's definitely not the investment in climate that they're all pretending it is. You know, in what was it, 2004, when the dams broke in New Orleans with Hurricane Katrina, and it was such a blight on our nation to know that the Army Corps of Engineers had been warning about that dam needing to be reinforced or updated. And that was almost 20 years ago. And, you know, you look at our subway system, you look at our trains, our train tracks. And so what happens is those neighborhoods where those trains are going to fall off the track and destroy those neighborhoods, once they decimate that whole population, will once again be a perfect hotspot for developers to come in and disaster capitalize their way, you know, through our whole country. It's like, you know, it's intentional. This isn't a problem with the system. This is the system, right? They're already talking about this in Hawaii. I mean, the residents in Hawaii were terrified of it from the beginning. They were saying they were worried that they weren't going to be able to stay in their neighborhoods. Economists in Hawaii warned that residents who survived the wildfire that destroyed much of the Maui community of Lahaina might not be able to afford to live there after it's rebuilt unless officials alter the zoning laws and make other changes. So already people are going to swoop in, and that's like closer to the water, prime property. If only you get rid of all those poor people who've lived there for, you know, centuries, decades. And the same thing, there was just a video about is it Barbados? I can't remember, but like the people who live there can't access the beach because they've all been developed. They're all private hotels and resorts. And yeah, they can't access their own water. You know, that's what Obama's did in Hawaii, put up that seawall. And it's not legal, but he paid the fine.
I mean, that's the thing that's wrong with the country. It's like you've got an economy that is allegedly doing good, and on paper we're doing great, and we're one of the largest economies in the world. But the benefits don't hit the average people. The benefits of all that hit the top 1%, 5%, maybe even 10%. But like,
no,
you know,
sorry, sorry, wrong, not 10%. Nope.
It's just getting exponentially worse to where people, you know, Bernie woke people up to what the hell was going on. They were feeling it already. Don't get me wrong,
right.
But like, we really need to be pushing our normal centristy friends to understand our healthcare situation in this country. Like that to me is the link that hits home to a lot of people, because,
right.
You know, poor people and, you know, rent is obviously an issue. The homelessness is obviously an issue, but like to get people on our side, we need the people that are doing okay to also get
right.
it. We need them to understand. And the one thing they're not doing as good as they think. If they have a healthcare issue, they're going to lose that nice home of theirs.
Yeah.
They're going to be fucked, and they don't know it.
Yeah. Right.
So to me, like, that's our connection to a lot of the people that don't agree with us on other stuff. yet.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, it just feels like until it affects them personally, there is a real remove in their minds from the other people who are suffering. I mean, most people think they're closer to being a billionaire or even a millionaire than being homeless, and that's just not the case. All right, where are we now?
We can probably stop the economy. I mean, okay, the pandemic, obviously, this is 2 years old, but you know, capitalism in our country, whatever system we have here, it's always going to take advantage of every situation to bleed more money to the wealthiest people. So workers lost, this is in 2 years ago, workers lost 3.7 trillion during the pandemic. Women and Gen Z saw the biggest losses. And oh, look how similar that number is to the world's billionaires getting richer by 3.9 trillion.
I mean, to phrase it like lost, stolen, those are stolen wages.
Stolen.
And it's a zero-sum game because what was stolen from you went right into the pockets of the people who stole it.
Yeah, and I pulled this. I mean, it's economy, whatever, but I mean, it just shows you we have nobody looking out for us. This is the Supreme Court. News documents show Justice Roberts and Justice Alito own shares in 19 companies that could get $30 billion in tax relief if the Supreme Court issues a broad ruling in favor of those companies in the upcoming term's landmark tax case. So basically, they're going to rule on something that they have. First off, why do they have 19 companies that could get $30 billion in tax relief? Are they going to recuse themselves? Of course they're not. They're going to be in the case. There's no oversight whatsoever on these people anymore.
Not at all. And yeah, the corruption is just expected.
Gone. Shame doesn't work. That's the one thing Trump did. Trump ended shame in politics. You got Menendez. You got all these people just staying in office when they're.
Yeah. Adam Schiff. It just came out. Adam Schiff has stock. I mean, it didn't just come out, but like there was a new, because now they're maybe going to try to not impeach him, but bring him up. You know, I mean, it's the only good thing about it switching is that, you know, everybody, at least the Republicans are going to call out the corruption on the Democrats call out the corruption on the Republicans. Nobody ever actually pays a consequence, but they get to point fingers and the rest of us can just watch this, you know, wrestling show as they pretend that they really care about the corruption, which of course they don't, because if they really wanted to impeach Trump and make it stick, they could have gotten him on the actual like corruption that he has been part of for decades.
Can I just say that we really need to get Adam Schiff because he named me personally in the Twitter files.
That's right.
Trying to get me, he pleaded to Twitter to have my account banned.
Your Peter Dowan?
Yep, my Peter Douche.
I mean, Peter Douche one, yeah. Imagine, those are his priorities. More war and to get your parody account taken off.
I mean,
to have somebody fighting there for you. All right. You know, we have a couple of like, oh my gosh, painful videos. How are people doing it? I feel like we're all probably feeling sad about it. Very long video that I don't think we have time for, but I just wanted to say, I think it's really interesting. It is a US woman watching a video of Scottish baby boxes and what they get. And it goes on for 2.5 minutes because the box just keeps going. There's basically like a little crib. The box can be made into a crib and it has a mattress and there's, you know, I mean, like it just goes on and on. You can take care of your people.
Here's what we'll do. Let's show it next week. And I'll speed it up like twice or something. We'll figure out how to speed it up because it really is amazing. I mean, it's like they get this gigantic box. The box itself turns into a crib, and just the stuff that the care given. It's probably
thoughtful.
$1,000 worth of stuff, but like it's just that it shows the connection to humanity that your government is putting out there. And meanwhile, here our child mortality rate, death rates are off the charts compared to any civilized country on earth. We're slipping like crazy.
Yep. And our maternal, women dying, giving birth in this country.
Which disproportionately affects women of color. It's a huge, it's one of the biggest gaps in medicine is the death rate at birth.
Truly horrifying to see the priorities of the people in power when we could be doing so much more. All right, then let's just go out of the economy with this lovely woman.
Back in 1979, the Western world was in decline. So Ronald Reagan and Thatcher too, well, they fixed it right up, but not for you, just for rich people stacking the deck. Rich people with big fat checks. Rich people, they're having a ball. Rich people been fucking us all night. Who run the world? It ain't the Jews. Rich people don't pay no dues. Who did the crime? It ain't the blacks. Rich people don't pay no taxes. Who took your job? It ain't immigration. It's rich people with corporations. And who threw the vote? It ain't rednecks. Rich people with big fat checks.
We spinning the wheel?
Oh yeah, let's do the wheel. Let's get to, what do we got? Shots?
Yeah, shots. We need a shot.
Yeah, baby.
All right. What do you want, Pat? Can I just
Roll
pick
it.
anything?
Did you get a wholesome one? Did I share this one with you? Okay. When you look, I thought you would have rejected this one for sure. Kids getting hurt. Lila's gonna start crying.
I know. I just didn't want you. I know. I didn't want you to think that I was ixnaying. I was 86ing all of your suggestions. So the one where the kids get hurt, definitely a Pat contribution. The silent skiers that put us all to sleep and we couldn't really make out, that was me. So
All right.
All right.
Yeah, baby.
Look at that. Look at that.
We must have needed a lot of cleaning. We're dirty here.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. Oh my God, it doesn't start at the beginning.
And it goes, I'm Slim Shady, yes, I'm the real Shady. All you other Slim Shadys are just imitating. So won't the real Slim Shady please stand up? Please stand up, please stand up. Cause I'm Slim Shady, yes, I'm the real Shady. All you other Slim Shadys are just imitating. So won't the real Slim Shady please stand up? Please stand up, please stand up.
That was just to keep us in the mood.
Yeah, let's
in the
try.
party mood. All right.
I had some hair envy though. I mean, it was a mullet, but that's some,
it's a lot.
well-groomed hair
going
that
on there.
I miss.
All right. We spinning?
Spinning.
Yeah, baby.
Democracy is on the ballot. Democracy is on the ballot again. And you can tell how seriously Democrats are taking it because they're fine with this. What? Trump beating Biden by 10 points in the latest ABC Washington Post poll. And, I know a lot of people, it's an outlier. Mostly they're tied, but not necessarily when you look at swing states. They're not. But also, there's never an outlier poll where Biden's beating Trump by 10 points, if you notice.
Look, if you're Democrats and you care about winning this thing, the only remotely safe thing is to run literally anyone but him. Well, caveat, not Kamala Harris.
Kamala.
Anyone else, literally anyone else. You hold a primary, whoever rises to the top of that primary, by default, it will not be Kamala because she's not going to win.
Yeah.
So if you just held a primary, and granted, I can't stand Newsom. I mean, I can't stand Newsom, but I can't stand Newsom. I can't stand RFK. But those guys could win easy compared to Trump. It's just you're out here saying you got to stop fascism by voting for the guy that we won't hold the debates for, who
and that 70% of your party doesn't want.
Your own party doesn't want. 70% of the country thinks is not mentally fit. He's losing every poll. Ukraine is going to turn on him. A year from now, Ukraine is going to be such an albatross. So he's going to go down on that. COVID facts. People are starting to slowly wake up that COVID is pretty fucked. Yeah. You're seeing another round of masking.
The more people have long COVID is really going to be a problem, especially because nobody has health care.
So what is going to tweak these things his direction? Now you've got Trump getting in charge. They just declared today that basically they're breaking up Trump organization. I mean, he's really fucked. I mean, that could really hurt Trump, but that doesn't mean he's going to do, if it's not Trump. I mean, you still have all the Republicans hating Biden, which is the whole way elections are determined this day. How much does one side hate the other? Because nobody likes their candidate.
Right.
So,
yes, although
the right.
I mean, Trump really does have a faithful base. Biden has no base apart from his billionaire donors, and they're even turning on him, which is why what'd you say? What'd you say?
Can people hear me?
Are people not hearing me? Really? Hard to know. Hello. All right. I'm just gonna.
It was me.
Okay, I figured. I didn't want to blame you. I thought it was funny though that right away it was like, oh, Trump edges out Biden. Really edges? That's not an edging out, but okay. Yeah, I mean, donations to progressive groups are down.
Yeah, it wasn't just one poll. It was like 3 polls all at the same time. He's doing the worst he's done since he started in almost every category. And how does this get any closer other than hoping that Trump burns up in flames? If Trump really burns up in flames, somebody else is going to take over the nomination. And did we demonize them as much as Trump? I mean, a lot of center-C Dems are going to go, you know what? Biden's fucking lost it. He's failed on everything. Yeah. Like maybe this guy is not as bad. I mean, enough people to where, the only one Biden had a shot in hell at beating is probably Trump.
I mean, I don't know. It's all such a mess. I'm excited to watch the highlights of the debate tonight because I'm sure it's going to be a total shit show. And of course, Trump isn't going again, which is probably smart on his part. And he's going to do a pretend talk to workers, not union striking workers in Detroit, but a non-union auto worker shop. But yeah, I mean, so now it's all about managing Biden, right? They are trying to not let him fall. He was only on the strike line for about 15 minutes. They cut his mic when he, starts wandering off. He does the short stares on the plane. They are doing this media meme thing is their newest. It's a $70 million effort to create memes that are and videos that are easily shareable. So basically it's all just messaging. Like, how do we make him look cool? Put him in sunglasses, have those 2 coked up boys, influencer boys, talk about how cool he is.
So you're looking at $70 million. I'm not going to accuse anyone of anything on the left, the progressive left, but Kyle Kulinski, what are you doing praising Joe Biden and putting out a meme with him with progressive laser eyes? Like, what the fuck are you doing? Is this?
Appalling.
What the fuck is this?
Truly appalling.
I mean, that to me looks like it would easily be something I could say was, hey, you might be getting some of this $70 million fund to prop up Joe Biden. I mean, and it's really weird to me that you and Crystal Ball are suddenly all in on him.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not accusing anyone of taking the money, but what the fuck? If you're not like you're sharing, did you 5 years ago think you'd be sharing a fucking laser eyes Joe
because
Biden
he shows
picture?
up on a picket line? I mean, Union Joe should be at every picket line. Obviously, he's not. Wow, your drink is really green. I like it. Yeah, that is not the way to leverage any power with your platform, withholding your vote, unless Biden does something. Because right now, he is not making an affirmative case for any policies that he is hoping to get done. It's all just Roe v. Wade, I guess.
And if you're a leftist, how do you not see the difference between saying, okay, it's good that he went to the picket line? You can do that.
Right.
Say that all you want. Like, it's better.
Yeah.
You want to praise like people who do something good once in a while. That was a good thing. But you don't fawn over him and put up fucking cartoon character Marvel hero Joe Biden shit, because then you've forgotten the entire history of Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And that's irresponsible.
By the way, just from a couple months ago, you don't even have to reach back 40 years. He broke up the biggest possible strike that could have happened in our country. He forced people back on the job against their will.
Unprecedented union busting from a president.
Yeah, because you know what? Even Ronald Reagan, it didn't affect that number of workers. So yeah, you don't need to put out memes like that. You can say, hey, it's good, even if he doesn't believe it, even if his 4 decades in power completely undermine the words he's saying today. At least he's saying those words, good for more people to hear them. And he did. He had a good script. I heard some of it. He had a good script. It was, share the wealth, people sacrificed for you. Of course we did. Of course, that was Obama's guy, who, by the way, I mean, are we even on this? I don't even know. But Obama's guy was his Steve Ratner. All right, I can't find it. But made like really disparaging remarks about Biden showing his cards. And how'd you find that? It's not showing up for me. Oh, it's in unions. Good job. Hard to find a quote that better summarizes how Obamanomics is not the same as Bidenomics. For him to be going on a picket line is outrageous. Stephen Ratner, who headed former President Barack Obama's auto industry task force, said in an interview, "There's no precedent for it. The tradition of the president is to stay neutral in these things. I get the politics. The progressives all said, we don't want a mediator, we want an advocate." And he bowed to the progressives, and now he's going out there to put his thumb on the scale, and it's wrong. There should not remain a shred of doubt about what a disgusting president Obama was. The people he surrounded himself by, the way that basically he and the union leadership of the UAW forced workers to forego cost of living adjustments and take pay cuts that they've never gotten back, while government and all of the taxpayers bailed out the auto industry. That's putting your finger on the scale for sure. But they never see it. When it comes down for corporations, they never talk about how that's putting their thumb on the scale.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just a PR move. And when the guys write stories like this about how Obama was the noble guy here who stayed neutral, and Biden should stay neutral, and the progressives made him do it. Like, why are you pinning this on progressives already? Like,
yeah, right.
Like, you're already saying this is going to hurt Biden somehow, by doing that,
right.
or it's your way to just pull back and make sure you're supporting the corporate folks, and that this is an unsanctioned move to the left. It's a stupid move. So even if Biden does it to win over the left for voters, it's not really something anyone should believe in on the left or center or Democrat.
Right.
And
meanwhile, most of the country supports it. Most of the country supports workers and unions. So politically, it is a smart move. But to say those words out loud, and then, the other guy, we didn't talk about it when we were doing Bidenomics or the economy or whatever, but Neil Katyal, Obama's, I don't know what his legal, what was Neil Katyal? What was his official? I'm going to find it. Wait a second. What was his official Former top lawyer.
Oh,
Okay.
this is the guy who always argues the courts between the Supreme Court. He's the guy who's out at Burning Man.
Exactly. He was at Burning Man. Yeah. That big, that bougie, bohemian, experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's arguing prophylactically against a billionaire tax. Hope and change. Bring it. Hope and change. All right. So what do we have in 2024? Where are we going? What are we doing?
Is that what we landed on? I don't even know anymore.
Yeah, we're doing the democracy on the
all
ballot.
Over the place. Okay,
I know we are. We're meandering today a little bit.
All right, well, let's just hit the polls real quick.
There is one policy that Biden's really all in on. Concert tickets, hard enough to get. You shouldn't have to pay surprise service fees on top of that. My administration is working to crack down on those junk fees so you know what you're paying for up front. I mean, great, but that's like a side note. That's like the 5 millionth thing on your list.
Is this like, do they believe they're going to get young kids to come out and vote because you kiddos and your concert ticket prices? I mean,
first
off, he should be, as the leader, saying, these events are super spreaders and COVID's at risk and blah, blah, blah. But we know we're never going to get that out of Joe Biden. But here he is, like, lowering the prices to super spreader events. And that's like he could tweet a million things. They tweet, I don't know what, maybe 10 things a day the president tweets. Yeah. And he doesn't do it. It's the strategy team. So strategically, one of their 10 options to do things was ticket prices. We're going to put that out there today.
Super, super important. As we're talking about the Trump indictments and everything, there today, I think today or yesterday, was Hunter Biden getting the money, like millions of dollars wired to him in 2019 at Joe Biden's Delaware home. And I mean, Biden is very clearly implicated, at least in allowing his name to be used for influence peddling. And they always just wash each other out, whether it's the sexual assault, and people will say, the liberals will say like, oh, Trump raped more people, Biden only one, and oh, she's a lie. They're going to come up with all their different things. Oh, it's the corruption. Well, different kind of corruption. It was his son, and it wasn't when he was actually in office. And it's like there's always a reason. But the truth is, none of these things is enough to switch over anybody. If you are a Biden supporter, you're going to justify it. If you're a Trump supporter, you're going to justify it. So none of it matters. And right now, there are no policies. What is Biden saying he's going to do? Give us more of this economic situation? What is the plan for 4 years?
If you add a drop of realism to it, which includes the Democrats not winning a majority in both houses, and they're going to lose seats in the House.
Right.
So where does that leave you? He was just president he's in his third
2
year.
years where he had both chambers.
Yeah, but he got nothing done. He ran as this president that could work across the aisle, get nothing done. We saw unprecedented overturn of public policy with Roe versus Wade being returned to the states. So all the things he's even if you're like, we're not going to win, but like, it's better to have a Democrat there. He failed at like protecting us during this time with a majority for some of it. So why would you think, now that we know going into it already, he's not going to have a majority? Why is this guy the best guy for the job?
Yeah.
Like, there's no, you can't make the case. And people are like, well, but I got this argument yesterday. Well, the Democratic field is just weak. Who would you recommend? It's like anybody, like literally anybody.
But also it's weak on purpose. And, again, like, I know we've all moved beyond Bernie, and it breaks my heart because I had such hope in 2020 at the very beginning, in 2019. And he was galvanizing millions of young people. They're, watching them sometimes like come out of a building and be like, it's Bernie fucking Sanders. And it was like kids running towards him and coming and like feeling like we have a stake in our future. I'm not putting myself in the young people, but like we are like feeling we have a stake in our future and that the left could win. And the one thing that Democrats were able to fight for was to crush the left, to pave the way for the most far right president we've had, at least like what he ran on. Maybe he's done some things with, unions and stuff, but that's what they did. They killed all the excitement. They crushed every progressive. So yeah, it's a very short bench. It was a huge mistake. And this is the heartbreak of heartbreaks. Ralph Nader, wary of Trump, offers to help Joe Biden win. Long estranged from Democrats, this political firebrand fears fascism will be on the ballot and it must be defeated. How does Ralph Nader, when his friend Cornel West is running third party, how is this happening? It is such an utter failure. And let me tell you, Democrats know exactly how to fight because they fought for and absolutely destroyed the left in our country.
Yeah. And look, even if you pull the plug on Biden, their plan is Newsom. It's clear as all day. They send Newsom to a NATO event.
Right.
He's getting into a debate with DeSantis.
They just ironed it all out. That's going to happen. Yep.
And he launched those commercials, versus California versus Florida, all that stuff. And why is Newsom running ads in Florida when he wasn't on the ballot for anything?
Right.
And here he is doing this, and then he's getting interviewed left
Reagan
and right.
And his little videos.
Yeah, he praised fucking Reagan on AIDS, not on AIDS, on the LGBT community, and Reaganomics
and economics. Yeah,
like this is your guy. Hero. This is the people that this is the guy that people think is progressive. People that think he's progressive don't realize Californians mostly know he's not progressive. A lot of normie Dem people in California, they may be okay on it. But progressives in California know he's not progressive. Sure as hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
He just voted he killed a bill on ensuring that trucks couldn't be autonomous. So now we're going to have autonomous trucks. So that's a job killer. Obviously,
total job killer, vetoed a bill that was a pro-worker bill that would ensure that there had to be a driver on these driverless trucks.
Another bill for LGBTQ protections for kids in school, killed that.
Yeah,
this is this week stuff with Newsom.
Yeah,
these aren't his lowlights. This week in Newsom. So,
well, that's
he's a big fan. The biggest thing he did was coordinate killing Medicare for all in the state when he fucking ran on it.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
listen, you lie down with dogs, get up with fleas, whatever that is. The fact that he was with Kimberly Guilfoyle in their disgusting, like bare rug, gold-plated Trump wannabe kind of penthouse apartment shows exactly who he is.
And I think people's sexual whatevers are one thing, but you also got to look at, like, he cheated with his best friends. He cheated on his wife with his best friend's wife, right? Was it wife or girlfriend? I don't know. But
I don't even know.
Either way, that's layers of fucked up, you know? And that's just, it goes to his character, not that it defines his character, but add it to all this other stuff and his connection to the elites in California and being out at the French Laundry, which is the bougiest restaurant in California.
The most
during COVID,
restaurant, when everybody else is supposed to be home.
As he locked down people, he was breaking the rules, the law in the state by being at this event, and he's the fucking governor.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to do well. Actually, I don't know. I was going to say I don't think he'll do well on the national stage, but I think people will be so happy to get rid of Biden if that's what happens.
And that's how I see it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think he would easily win in the end against any Republican on the ballot, but
I kind of do too. All right, should we spin it? What do you think? One last one?
We got one more. Let's do one more.
All right.
Yeah, baby.
That's a good way. That's a good thing to end on. All right. So, again, like, I don't want to talk poorly about this Writers Guild tentative agreement. It seems like there are quite a few good things. People are excited about it. I do think that the language on AI could possibly really allow for some loopholes. One of the difficult, so Writers Guild has a tentative deal. The deal points are out. We won success-based residuals, strong limitations on AI, minimum writers room staffing, guaranteed compensation, and 13-week minimums for comedy variety writers in streaming. And, the list goes on. They also, I thought, did a really nice thing, which is underscoring how WGA negotiations told the studios the union wouldn't go back to work until SAG also has a deal. Because if the last 5 months proved anything, it's in together, win together. Studios inquired if once a tentative agreement is ratified by the scribes, if the writers would pick up their pens and hit their keyboards again very soon afterwards. The Guild, from what we understand, made it clear they would not be going back to work until SAG-AFTRA also had a new agreement with the AMPTP, reflective of the WGA's feeling of solidarity between the two unions that has characterized their first mutual strike since 1960. I really appreciate that, especially because the Directors Guild did their deal very quickly and scampered back to work. I am sure they were part of these interim agreements, which allowed actors to act on set on movies that were written by people who were on strike, who then couldn't be there to do the rewrites on set. So gross.
Costing them
really
money.
Yeah. Yes. So wonderful to see all of that solidarity. The AI thing is really hard. It's a global worker issue. We're all going to have to figure out some way to deal with it. Married to a writer, for decades, I have seen Josh go in and pitch ideas, stories, scripts on projects that they were hiring for, which sometimes he would get notes and do rewrites and rewrites for months or years before he either gets the job or doesn't get the job. Then we would go see the movie that he wasn't hired on and see exact scenes lifted from pitches that he had sat there and given to them. So, it's really difficult because this business, like every business, is filled with disgusting vultures who steal your labor. And it's always, and so this is what's happening with the AI. You can say, hey, I don't want to work on something that started with a script that was, like a template that was generated by AI, because obviously that AI is just stealing from all your other writer compatriots, right? But then you're that person. And there's 300 more people behind you who will be fine doing that. It's the same thing with like writers, like steps. You're supposed to be paid for each step of a rewrite. But a lot of times they'll say, well, we have some notes, but it's not going to be a full rewrite. So please don't charge for a step, but we'll hire you for the next step. But can you just do these rewrites? You can say no, but then they're just going to fire you and hire somebody else to do the rewrite. So, you're always in this position of knowing this desperation. And if your union, I don't actually know the way to deal with it. I really don't. Because it's so many just personal relationships that you have with people. It's so rare to get a job. You work for so many months or years just to get a job. It's just it's a crazy situation.
I mean, It sounds like the reality is they have too much power over their employees because it's such a blessing to work, is how that's like that. As Bill Maher so eloquently explained about his writers, you should be lucky you have this job.
Yeah, you shouldn't expect to make a living to make a living, right?
But that's where, if it's in the contract, granted, you may still cave and do the rewrite for free because they're going to still press you to. But if there's something in the contract, it makes it more authentic and more inappropriate that they make this step happen. And at some point they'll get called out and it could cost those people their jobs. We might get some new accountability that didn't exist before.
Yeah. I hope so. I hope there's, I'm not normally like this, but I hope there's some real tenacious legal people who want to crack some heads when that happens and are like, like the ambulance chaser people, but they're like looking for anybody whose material was stolen.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yes, we are
Well,
waiting
if
now.
that's the case, I'm going to sue Bill Maher because he's stolen some of my shit.
There you go. Get on it. So yeah, we're waiting. The writers still get to vote, but there is a possible contract in place. So
in other news on unions, there's a lot of good stuff happening.
Yes.
Let's see. We got Mexican auto workers showing some solidarity here.
Refusing voluntary overtime in support of the U.S. strike. Bosses want to pit us against each other. They won't win. The fight is global.
We got the UAW suing, filing a labor complaint against Tim Scott because he told workers they'd be fired for striking, which you can't fucking do that. That's like
against the law.
The number one rule of unions is you have the right to strike.
Wait, unless you're President Joe Biden, and then you can tell them that they can't strike.
Well, because it's the president. Here we go. Amazon also getting sued for a monopoly. Not really a union deal per se, but like holding corporations to account. That's the Federal Trade Commission. And in Nevada, kudos to the Culinary and Bartenders Union.
They just voted to strike.
So all these strikes are just beginning more strikes. 22 casino resorts. I mean, that's going to really affect a lot of fucking business in Vegas. And then, so we've got CVS. This is where COVID kind of comes into play, but the pharmacists are understaffed, overloaded with patients, and some report having to give 125 boosters in a day. So they staged walkouts in 22 stores in just Kansas City.
That's great. Yeah, that is definitely hopeful. I know it's really late, and I guess we're not getting to COVID. There was so much COVID stuff, but and there's so many people out there I really appreciate who keep mentioning us to other people who are complaining that nobody on the left talks about it on their podcasts. And there have been a few, I think Kim and I'm not going to be able to remember all the people, but we've been tagged into lots of people responding to COVID conscious doctors and Twitter who are saying, where's the left? Why aren't they talking about COVID? And we really appreciate all the people who are putting our name out there. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'm being a dick every day on Twitter to these people, hoping not the people you mentioned.
No, but to the people who are not.
I just want podcasts on the left to just address this. This is like, how do you miss this moment? How do you miss this right now? How do you overlook this and just go along with Joe Biden on this? Like the information is right in front of you. Cover it. So yeah,
although it's very difficult to find, and I know we're gonna end on our one good thing, so we'll get back to the union stuff. But I just want everybody to know there were 1,392 deaths this week, and last week there were 1,500.
So let's just go over it just briefly. I mean, because I want to. I was going to do the same. I was going to do the same thing. I was like, we can't end with no COVID at all.
Yeah, right.
Even though it is kind of depressing, but
we'll end on a good thing. Yeah. Oh no! Then you lagged.
I'm back.
Okay, he's back. Okay, good. Yeah.
Okay, so the important stuff this week for COVID is one, that the medical community has got more and more evidence that long COVID is real and quantifiable, and you can measure it and test it.
Right.
And show people this is someone who has long COVID. That's a huge breakthrough since we got millions of Americans with long COVID.
Right.
And the people pretending it doesn't exist.
Right.
You can see from all the excess death charts that you can't track this to the vaccine. It's clearly not the vaccine. That's COVID.
Right. Sorry, that was actually different. I thought I was helping illustrate your point. Yeah.
That's right. Novavax. This is important because Novavax. Do we have the shorting slide? I don't know if we pulled that or not, actually. But
okay. This is just describing that it actually is more durable with more durable immunity and fewer side effects, Novavax, than mRNA vaccines. And because of that.
So it's being without explanation stalled from being approved, and the CDC is sending
FDA
it back.
Keep like past, yeah.
They're ping-ponging it back and forth, but it's just a delay tactic to not approve this. And because of that,
Pfizer and Moderna are both,
they're both board members that decide on these
with the
new
FDA
vaccines.
and they have seats at the FDA and the CDC, right? So Dr. Sean Mullen is talking about Novavax. It's the most shorted stock, the most inaccessible vaccine, also the most safe, has the least adverse events, most durable and easy to transport, the only vaccine that doesn't have a seat at the table of the FDA, CDC from former board members, the target of the most negative press. And yes, they are short selling it. They are betting against it so they can make money on its failure while they prevent us from getting a vaccine that is wildly better than the ones that they produced. And all with our government money.
To me, the important part here is that here is a non-mRNA vaccine. So you've got a whole world of people here. Some of them are convinced mRNA is the thing. Like they trusted all these other vaccines, but mRNA is just rewrites your DNA and all this other bullshit. So here's an opportunity to get these people on board and vaccinated and protect them. And you're not giving any excuse to why you're not approving this. I mean, it's already been approved.
Yeah, but they just keep kicking it back and forth, as you said, and it's very clear it's because they are doing the bidding of
but so if they just got this vaccine out there, it would take a lot of the skepticisms away from a certain group of people. And instead you're left with, oh, it's only those two and big pharma again. And these people are right. The big pharma is fucking them. But it doesn't mean that COVID's not real and long COVID's not real. And if you really want to donate to big pharma, don't wear a mask and get COVID a bunch of times because you're going to be buying a lot of fucking medication.
There was a whole list of musicians who are canceling shows. Bruce Springsteen, Ringo Starr, Adele. Then I also had a bunch more people who had to cancel events. Lorde, Steve Martin, Jimmy Kimmel, all because of COVID. I don't remember. This isn't the flu or cold. I know we all know that, but it is really striking. They just had to shut down several flights in London at Gatwick because air traffic controllers were all out sick. I think they said something like 8,000 people would be stranded. Sick day levels are higher than they have been, I don't know since when, for a decade. I mean, it took me 3 weeks to feel normal.
Well, and this is all coming, and I've said this before, but this is in a way the advantage that the labor movement has, is that as much as they're trying to pinch the labor movement, raise unemployment so that we don't have power as workers, COVID is keeping pace with their efforts because COVID is decimating the workforce and frontline workers. Axios just wrote an article about this, but why it matters. Understaffing in some industries can have dire consequences for public health and safety. Air traffic controllers.
Do you want somebody with brain fog doing air traffic control?
So, but you're going to have a shortage of teachers, or you're going to have less educated, less trained teachers because you're going to fill those gaps with people that don't have degrees or are in programs, but they're not fully qualified as teachers yet. For example, nurses, you want your nurse to not have as much training as they used to because you're going to have nurses that were rushed in to these positions. Frontline workers are the first to go, and they're overwhelmingly skewed towards people of color and people without a lot of money working these frontline jobs. And they're the first to suffer. They need more
than just clapping at 7 p.m. or whatever that was supposed to be enough.
Point being that everyone on the left not talking about this, what the fuck are you doing? It connects to the labor market. It connects to income inequality. It connects to our shitty healthcare system. You're screaming for Medicare for all and saying our healthcare system is fucked up, but you don't talk about the fucking pandemic. How do you not fucking talk about the pandemic?
which again still rages, and I still get people saying to me, "Oh, it's just the flu, or just a cold." Even take 2 Tylenol. Thank you. You know, sorry, we really kind of like pinballed all over the place today, and we didn't get to go through enough people's comments, but thank you. I'm trying to read all of them. Thank you, Dave. I am feeling better. All right. I think we should go out on what? A little solidarity. The French, yeah, a little solidarity. It's our only hope is a broad working class movement, international broad working class movement. You guys are all awesome. We'll see you next week. Here's a little inspiration.
I am Benoît Test. I'm the leader of the FSU, French Public Service Workers Union. I want to express my full support to the UAW's stand-up strikes on behalf of the FSU. The victory of your movement is very important for us. It would be a great win for the American working class. Your fight for better wages in a period of high inflation is a decisive step in the international struggle of the labor movement against neoliberalism. In Europe and France, our unions are facing the same problems of low wages and job insecurity. On October 13th, unions are calling European workers to demonstrate to oppose austerity and demand better wages and equal pay for men and women. We believe that international solidarity between workers is more important than ever. We wish you the best and hope you win very soon. Solidarity forever.